Welcome to Firm Foundations, powered by Parallel 42. This is where faith meets real life and leadership gets personal. I'm your host, Stephen C. Wilson. In each episode, we explore the timeless truths, everyday decisions, and transformational leadership principles that help you build a life that lasts. Welcome to Firm Foundations, where we explore the intersection of faith, leadership, and the work we are called to build. Today's conversation touches on a community that carries enormous responsibility, often under immense pressure, and that's our law enforcement professionals. And my guest today is Dr. Olivia Johnson. She's the founder of Blue Wall Institute and CEO of Cop to Corporate. These are organizations dedicated to supporting the well-being and leadership development of those who serve in law enforcement and beyond. And through her work, she focuses on helping officers navigate the demands of the profession while strengthening their leadership, identity, and overall wellness, spirit, soul, and body. I had the opportunity of meeting Olivia in a different setting, but then found out that she's a person of faith, and so I thought, hey, this would be a great connection for Firm Foundations podcast. And so, Olivia, I appreciate you being on the program today.
Oh, I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I like to start out, with I mean, you know yourself better than I, but the question really being, just give us a little bit about your background. What led you to focus your work on law enforcement and leadership, wellness, all of those things around that particular topic?
Yeah, so I spent a couple enlistments in the military in the Air Force down at Scott Air Force Base. When I got out, I tried a little bit of everything from student teaching. I did, bail bonds, PI work. I did a little bit of everything. I even sold Avon at one point. I always joke about that, but I couldn't get it off the ground because I was my best customer. So I've tried a little bit of everything, but I fell in love with the law enforcement piece. And I started working as a law enforcement officer, and I was working on my master's at the time, realizing that I needed to find a topic for my dissertation. And I started looking at vehicle accidents initially. I lost the only other female in my academy class had passed away from a vehicle accident. But after really looking in that and really getting deep into some of the stories, I started seeing the suicide thing coming out. And I'm like, well, that's odd. Maybe it's just a fluke. And I kept digging and digging and I kept asking questions, and people were really unaware that this was an issue. And I said, well, I felt like that was my calling, was to start looking at that. Though it's not an epidemic, as many like to refer, it's still a leading cause of death among this profession. And I just absolutely adore my military. I adore my first responders, my clergy, people that really have those service-oriented occupations. They oftentimes give more than they have to give. And that's why we end up sometimes in the issues that we have. So that really kind of like pushed me into this realm of looking at suicide, which I have in depth for the last 15 years. And my background is also in leadership as well, but I felt like these two had kind of come together. And then, I'd say probably in the last 5 or so years, it's taken on even a bigger piece of the pie for me as being a Christian. My comment to most people in my trainings are, I can save you every day from bad things happening or suicide, but if you don't know Jesus, then where are we really at? So then I kind of felt like it took a turn for me, and it kind of made this turn that I need to not only look at saving lives, but we're looking at saving souls here and getting, and helping people get through these really bad things. So that's where I'm at today.
Have you seen are trends? Talk trends. Is it happening more? Is it becoming a larger problem?
No, I think it's actually been pretty consistent over time. Now, again, we don't have all the cases, and it depends on which populations you look at. So for me, everybody thinks that when you look at first responder suicide, you have to look at every person that's considered a first responder. But I can't physically do that by myself, and I can't economically do. I mean, it's very expensive to pull records and do these things that we do. So for me, I look at police and corrections, but I look at former officers, meaning some of them have been charged with crimes and maybe they went to jail and those type of things initially, so they've lost that ability to be commissioned and working actively. But we look at the former officers, the retired officers, and those that are currently sworn and commissioned. So that's a lot of people. You're looking at approximately maybe 300 or so a year, but again, we don't count them until we can verify every case that we get. And I know there's a lot that we don't get. And it's not because we don't try, it's because oftentimes people don't want to talk about these things, and it's not because of the stigma of mental health in most cases. The truth is there's stories behind each of these cases, and sometimes those carry stigma too. and
Sure.
and until we get past that and we want to share what really happened, then we're never going to get to this place that we want to be. So we kind of all have a common goal, but the truth is we all have agendas and narratives that we're running at the same time, which is it's not helpful, and it's actually working against us.
Yeah, what are some of the for those outside the profession? What are some of the pressures that law enforcement leaders, officers carry that people might not fully understand?
Well, and this is one of the things that I think that we often take for granted. Just because your local agency looks like they have it together doesn't mean they do. They have the stresses of everyday life. Our research actually shows that it's not the job that's their biggest stressor. The job is the personal things that they take home with them and the stress that they have in their personal lives that they don't take care of,
Yeah.
oftentimes because they may be too invested in their job. So they don't deal with their stress appropriately. So I find that a lot of them, talk about feeling like they're under the microscope. Everything they do is a camera being pulled out, and that, living like that and working like that's very stressful.
Let's talk a little bit about the Blue Wall Institute and Comp to Corporate. Some of that work there. What are those two organizations
So
doing?
the Blue Wall Institute, we come in and we do a needs assessment. We talk to agencies that are doing well, but they want to maintain that. And we talk to agencies that are struggling and have been for quite some time. And we say, listen, I'm not going to come in and give you my basic Fatal 10 training. We need to do the top three, and we need to put a tourniquet on this, and we need to get to this quickly. And we need to take it, we need to take care of this piece of the pie first. So we do needs assessment, we do consultation, we do training and education. I do research as well. Cop to corporate, I really take those things that I've learned in law enforcement and other, military and other places of leadership, and we take that into the corporate world. So, in fact, I got my book sitting here. It's called The Tactical Pause. I wrote that book specifically to show people, like, we need to take that moment of just having that, where you get that crisis moment where everything seems to boil to a head and you want to make that split-second decision, right? You just want to react because you feel like you have to right now.
Yeah.
It takes you for a second. It says, listen, stop everything you're doing. Stop the presses. Step back from this situation and gain a little clarity, because no one has really ever sent an email in haste that they look back on and go, oh, that was a great decision. They probably didn't read the email that they got correctly. They overreacted. They misunderstood things that were going on. And then we have a whole new issue going on now that we have to take care of and put a fire out with. So it's the idea that we want to pause and really take a moment to address the issues that we're facing. Now, I'll tell you, my third company that I run is called Shepherds and Sheepdogs. And
Yes.
that one has just been off the ground recently. We were going to do a conference last year. It didn't quite work out, but that really focuses on the leadership piece. And it focuses on a piece for our first responders that says, listen, we get that you're feeling run down, you're getting burnout, you feel like people aren't supporting you, but we are supporting you. And we're going to show you how to get that idea back where you came in with that purpose and you have this drive to support and serve your communities. We're going to get that back in this class. Like, you're going to leave feeling like $1 million. And it's like when I told my husband, we went to see that Fast and Furious movie years ago when it first came out. And it wasn't my thing. But when I left, I wanted to do spin outs in the parking lot, right? I
Right.
said,
Yes. Yeah.
I want you to leave
Yeah.
better
It's
than
like
what
it's
you
like
came
when I
in.
was a kid. I'd go and you get new tennis shoes and you go outside and
Yeah.
you want to run in the Kmart parking lot to show
Yes.
how fast.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and it really, that these are my people, and this is my passion. We
Yeah.
we address those things that aren't working for them. We address the things that they might not be doing correctly, because just like anything else, I can ask a cop any day of the week, what happens to kids that don't have discipline? What happens to kids with no parents in the home? What happens to kids who are never wrong in their parents' eyes? They end up in the system. And the same thing can be said for those, that are already here working. Is we don't want to overlook the wrongs that we do. We want to address those things that aren't working well for us. We want to address the poor choices and bad decisions that we make, because those have serious consequences to the family. They have serious consequences to who you are as an officer and your work, and to the community and building trust. So it's like all of that. Like, we just have to say, listen, I think one of the local chiefs said, Steve Johnson from Fairview Heights PD is amazing, amazing leader. And he had a meme out there the other day that says something like, you can't expect us to be robots and then, like, and then expect us to have emotions when you're having a problem. And I'm like, exactly. We can't have it both ways. So we have to find a happy medium for both, and they both have to understand what each other's going through in order to build that trust in the community. And I feel like my community is really working very hard to do that, and it really makes me proud to say that.
We on a personal note in our local area here, and I know um, the two families that were involved had a youth with some mental health issues. Um, an incident where he ended up being shot by police and passing away. And again, I know both families. Uh,
Yeah.
I know you can't speak specifically to it, but in general, what are some of the things that that officer may be going through as a result of that?
Well, even if you have a shoot that's justified, right? You have an event and
Yeah,
it's completely justified. Now, I'm not saying that that's the case. I don't know the circumstances,
right.
but regardless, no one ever comes into this going, man, I just can't wait to have my first shoot. Like it's just, that's not how they think, right? They're under stress. There's a lot going on in their brain and their body at the same time. They're trying to make sense of it in their mind, but at the time that they're going through it, it's literally a fight or flight type of thing. So it's not, they don't really have a lot other than their training to go back on for muscle memory. It's the after effects that really, that's where we see the problems. And I'll tell you, in my data alone, I probably have 3 or 4 officers who were involved in shootings. They were literally waiting to be cleared. They were, they still felt bad because listen, when you have to take a life, that is not what you sign up for. That's not what you want to do. And even if it's a really bad person, right? Or they've done really bad things, trying to make sense of that in your mind is a completely it's something you never think about dealing with.
Yeah,
And not only are you dealing with it in your own mind and in your own family, the community also has their views of what you did and how you did it and what they think of you and what they think of cops regardless. So there's all these pressures coming at you trying to deal with this. On top of that, if you have an officer that does not have any solid foundation in faith or any type of belief system, it's like they're walking on sand and they're drowning every second they take a step. And that's what breaks my heart. That's the piece for me that says, listen, if you had this solid foundation to stand on, yes, it's still going to be hard. We're not saying that it's going to be easy, but it's different than when you don't have that belief system and you feed into everything that's being said and everything that comes out in the media, and that really plays a huge part of it. These men and women are putting their lives on the line, and they're doing things that that other people don't sign up for. And when it happens, they expect to have all this support, and oftentimes that's not the case because people are still trying to figure out why they did what they did. They lack that, the community lacks training and education. They just don't understand what's really happening. So what a lot of what our local people do as well in these agencies is they're doing citizen academies. They're educating people. They're telling you what's likely to happen here, how this thing's going to play out. But a lot of times with our officers, they're kind of left there to fend for themselves sometimes, even if it's just in their own mind and their own perceptions. They don't know where to turn and they don't know how to get the help that they need.
mm-hmm. You're very open about your faith in Jesus. How has your faith shaped the way that you approach leadership, service? How has that shaped you?
Well, it's definitely, like I said, it's taken a turn, and I'm really happy that it has. But in the past, when I would be training and stuff, I could maybe mention my faith really broadly, if that, and briefly, and get over it. I share it openly now. I don't care what people think. And if you don't like it, that's not really my problem. So I don't worry about that piece. But I find that when I do share it, I get a lot more people thanking me after the fact because they've wanted to share things or they've wanted to like have that piece of the pie. For me, that's everything. If I don't have that, nothing else really matters to me, and I can't help people in the way that I need to. I like I said earlier, I love my first responders, but my research has really pointed me in directions that kind of opened my eyes to things that in the past I would overlook and merely say it was all the job, it was PTSD, it was this, it was that. And then I thought, but that's not what the research is showing anymore. The research is actually showing that we're making some poor choices and bad decisions and not dealing with our stress appropriate. All these things were coming into play. And I
Yeah.
felt like when I was saying it was just the job, I was getting all these accolades, right? Everybody loved me. I love law enforcement, and that was kind of the motto back and forth. But then as soon as I started calling out what the research showed and what we needed to really address so that we could have happy, healthy officers and families, then it kind of came like, are you really on our side? And I started seeing that trend a little bit as well. And I thought, I give of my life, my time, my money, my energy every day of the week for my first responders. So that's kind of hurtful to me at times, but I know that the bigger mission for me here isn't about me being popular or being well liked or having a bunch of friends. It's about literally keeping names off the memorial wall and getting people back to their families happy, healthy, and safely. So I have to take the idea that, I'm going to be everybody's friend or everybody, everybody's cup of tea out of the picture here because I wasn't called to do that. And, and,
Right.
and I have to
Yeah.
keep that on my brain as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, you really believe that this is a calling?
Oh, I do. And I feel like, it's one of these things where I feel like if not me, then who kind of a piece because we can have people that sign up and tell you what you want to hear all day long. I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear all day long. Sometimes we need to hear things that we don't want to hear and we don't like to hear. And
Yeah.
I pray that I can say it in a way that's comforting and loving and not judgmental because that's not what not what I want to strive for in any way. But I want to help our profession become more professional and I want them to become better and more, and mental health issues not be an issue that we know how to go about getting help. And all of these things are just, second nature. And I want to see that change in some of these ways where we're still kind of struggling in certain areas.
Um, what does Can you share? Do you have an example that you can share where um, you were able to again bring hope, uh, restoration into some of these conversations?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said restoration because I actually was just I just spoke at the International Conference of Police Chaplains up in Springfield, Illinois, and our keynote was Tom Lemmer. He's former Chicago PD, one of the leadership guys, great guy. He spoke on redemption and really this idea that we're not just out arresting people and throwing people in jail and throwing away the key. If that was our only job, we could be really good at that piece. But the idea is that we are to meet people where they are and to give them the hope that there is redemption and that there is something better for them, right? So I think for me, it's that piece is, we all make mistakes. We all do things that maybe we shouldn't, for whatever reason. But the idea of redemption for me is just that I want them to see that, yes, they're great at their job and yes, they love their job, but there's a bigger picture here about what they do and why they do it and the
Yeah.
service to the community and their legacy. And for me, it's just really kind of opening up this picture to them that, you can make mistakes and still be okay. You can still make mistakes and move on. You might not be in this job. And hey, there are cases where they were in jail because of things that happen. That's the human body. That's sin. That's all of that rolled into one. And it's hard to separate those two pieces sometimes when you think about upholding the law and breaking the law and kind of becomes a divide. But I really feel like that's where I'm called is to really meet people where they are and even walk with them when they've made mistakes. And I've had that happen. I mean, I've got many cases where I've had notes left in my bag that people were going to take their lives before they came to my class that day. I've had officers that had pulled me out of a conference and said, listen, he said, I've got a sign across town with my name on it. And I knew exactly what he meant. And I said, well, unless you're being honored for something, we have a problem. And he says, yeah, we got a problem. So we were able to find him help that day in the town that he was in. He left. I normally don't hear back from a lot of people because they just don't reach back out. He
Yeah.
ended up going into treatment for alcohol abuse. Luckily, it saved his marriage. I can't guarantee those results, but he thanked me for it. Thanked me for the fact that, he had really taken advantage of his wife for years, had treated her really badly. His kids didn't talk to him. He came clean with all of that and really thanked me for that. And I said, again, it's not me, right? It's not me, it's God.
Yeah.
But I'm just glad that I could be that messenger.
How do the majority of the press, right, doesn't uh, doesn't share in the sense um, of what their heart is, what they're trying to do
Yeah.
within the communities. How do we push back against that? How do we um, address that? Because obviously, I would assume that weighs on them as well.
Sure. I mean, the media has its place, so I'm not going to knock the media because it
Right.
also brings out things that shouldn't be done and that are happening. So,
Yes.
so there, it's a kind of a love-hate thing, if you will. But the truth is, I don't blanket statement certain populations, because the truth is there's not all good in everything that you do. I don't care if you're talking about teachers or counselors or priests, there's always going to be that human component. So, but the majority of law enforcement and first responders go out there because they want to serve their communities and they want to serve them in any way that they need. And sadly, when things happen, what sells papers is, cop did this, or EMT did this. That's what sells papers. Or it could be the local pastor, shoplifted from Walmart. I mean, it is what it is, but that's how it sells papers, because just saying Jim Smith from wherever isn't going to draw the attention, right? And the reason
Right.
that the media does that as well is because they want to show you that people in positions of trust are held to a higher standard. And they should be. And I mean, I hold my cops and my chaplains to a higher standard than I do most other professions, because of
Mhm.
the fact that they have the ability, well, the cops have the ability to arrest people and to take their lives in some cases where, lethal forces is justified. And, and we have our chaplains and our priests and our clergy members who are trying to save souls. So there's a lot going on here with trust. And it's not to say that we won't make mistakes. We will. But I also think it's about the redemption piece. It's
Yeah.
about taking accountability and responsibility for the choices that you made, how we ended up here, and then moving forward. One of the biggest calls I get is with what our fatal 10, our leading one, is our relational issues. And I get individuals that call me and say, "Hey, I got your number. Here's what I'm dealing with." And what they're dealing with in many cases are things like infidelity, sexting. They're making poor choices that way, but they didn't see a problem until they got caught. Now, there are many reasons that this happens. Some of them are job stressors. Sometimes it's dealing with mortality issues and thinking that, you're not going to live forever, and that stuff starts to really feed into that. But it's also making poor choices because you can. So I won't blanket statement why anyone does that. That's kind of an individual thing. But what I tell them is, I'll say, I have one question for you and you have to answer it completely honest, or I won't help you at this point, because I need you to be completely honest with me. So
Yeah.
I ask them, had you not gotten caught, would you still be doing it today? And there's usually a pause, and then and they're like, yeah. I said, okay, well, here's the deal. You're not calling because you want help. Right now, you're calling to cover yourself, right? You're calling because you want to make it look like you're doing the right next thing. And that may be the right next thing, but what I need you to do first is you need to come to, grips with what you're doing and that you don't want to do it anymore. Because I have my own problems. When I help first responders and I do confidential peer support and I do training and I do all this stuff all day long, people don't see that. What they see is I go out training and they think, oh yeah, that's all she does. Well, no, it's not. I actually take calls all the time with officers who are struggling, who need resources. And a lot of times my own personal stuff gets set aside. So if you're not going to come to me completely honest and wanting to get help because you want to get help and not because you got caught, then I don't have time for that. I'll get you the resource, but I want to walk alongside you and I want you to make better choices and I want you to save your family because you tell me they're important. But what happens is we say that I ask them their top three people in their lives, and normally it's their spouse and their children, and sometimes they can't fit them all on that list. But they tell me those things are important. And then they don't make them a priority in their lives, and they become, distant memories at times until something bad happens. So I try to kind of calibrate where their priorities go. And
Yeah.
and we talk about those things and we get back on track. And that's what I want. I mean, it's not I see you 5 years down the road and I keep thinking in my brain, wow, that guy were really messed up. I'm thinking, man, I am so glad that they saved that marriage or they saved this and those kids, don't have a broken home. That's what I love to see.
Mhm.
Because we've all done things that other people might be shocked about or, judge us for. But the truth
Right.
is,
Yeah.
that's not what I'm here for. I want redemption. I want you to live your best life. I want you to look back and help other people one day with the same, with where you were at.
Yeah. How do you stay grounded? How do you stay because you're seeing and hearing and
Yeah.
all of this? How does your faith help you do that?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, Bible studies, praying about stuff. I really just I have a relationship with God that's, I just feel like He's meeting me where I'm at, right? I have my own things that I struggle with, and but I try to pray daily. I'm grateful for things. That one for me is gratitude. That's probably the biggest one. In fact, research actually shows that.
Mhm.
I try to put things in perspective, when even when things are not going my way, which it happens, it's life, right? But I'm grateful. So I'll give you a perfect example. I struggle with patience. I've gotten much better than I used to be, but I'm like, Any day now, Lord. Or I'm walking into Walmart and you get someone
You,
that's in front
you,
of you.
you're you're impatient about that, even, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. When's it
And
coming, God? When's it coming?
right. Well, and then I'm like, in traffic, I'm impatient. Then people are walking in front of me, they're too slow. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, but I'm thankful because I can walk. I don't have to take 3 buses to go to the store to get 2 bags of groceries that I can carry home. I'm thankful because my bills are paid. My family's healthy. I have a roof over my head, like those things, right?
Yeah.
I have some elderly neighbors that I've been taking care of for a little bit because they've had some issues, and I'm just like, it's like a blessing because it's like, God has allowed me those things to help a little bit financially, but with my time and energy, and that I'm able to still move around because I'm telling you, I'll be 52 this year. I'm gonna tell you, when I hit 30, I thought life was rough then, but I'm like, man, there's things that hurt now that you didn't even know. Like you get up from sitting too long, you're standing too long. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. All I did was stand up,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
yes. Or you slept wrong and now your neck's out of whack for a week. So, I'm just thankful that I'm able to do what I can do while I'm here, and that I really feel like God has put me in this position of serving others, and I truly love that piece. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the things to come in the future.
I'm feeling that. My wife and I, we just celebrated our 39th anniversary this week,
Nice.
and we both turned 60 within the next few months. So it's like,
I
wait a
love
minute,
it.
when did that happen?
Yes, yes. I know it's
I,
crazy. I was talking to somebody today. I'm like, I've been married 31 years. I really, it blows my mind. My kids are in, the early 30s. It's crazy. It doesn't even make sense.
yeah, yeah. So how did let me ask you, how did you come to the Lord, Olivia?
Well, I'll tell you, when I was younger, my mom worked a lot. So we kind of got, I was I told my husband I'm a latchkey kid. And he goes, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Well, people from Iowa know what that is. It's you have
Yeah,
that
yeah.
key. It's usually around your neck, which isn't the safest either, but you carry it. And when you get home, you have your own key to let yourself in and take care of things." And I did that. I was a latchkey kid. But I had a friend from school. I'm gonna give him a shout out. His name was Chris Wallace, right? He was my elementary school. I think and into middle school before I moved away. He invited me to the local Baptist church, which was literally half a block from my house, for vacation Bible school and different things. And that was my first introduction into the church. And these people were so loving. I mean, they were just so kind to me, and it just really resonated. So for those people out there that, when they have vacation Bible school, um and you think, did I reach anybody? I'm telling you, you're reaching kids all the time. You just don't know it. I'm 52 years old, so that was a long time ago. That really resonated with me. I can even remember the product, what we were.
Stop saying that you're 52, Olivia, because then what pops in my head is you're 60. So just
Well, I just think back, I'm like, I was probably 8, maybe 9 years old at the time. And I can still remember the project that we were doing. So we were making these little pom-poms, these little, so I remember how we wrapped it. I remember it was green. We put googly eyes on it. We made this pom-pom. Like it was that memorable for me, right? So, it had been, I think I was in my early 40s, mid 40s when I got baptized. I went to church, but I never really fully had a relationship with Jesus until recent. Like I'd say maybe the last five or so years, to where I really feel that I'm being led in certain ways, that I have a relationship where he speaks to me. I put out a post this morning on Facebook. I'd been asking in recent training, if I was to get $1 million, what would I do with it? And I thought, well, let's talk about the first 5 million. And I made this post about it, and and what I wanted to do with that money. And I felt like God is always leading me. To reach out to certain people. I help the unhoused and the homeless. I do certain things that I just feel other people, they don't see. And I feel like there's just so many different places where I can serve. And whenever he tells me to serve, that's what I do. And I just feel like that's just really grown for me in the last probably 5+ years.
where does or what does tell us a little bit about the cop to corporate. Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that work there that you're doing.
Yeah, so I take a lot of the things that I've learned in law enforcement and in leadership in general, and I take that into the corporate world, just sharing things that are helpful to leadership and team building, which I think is huge. I have a new class that's kind of in between all of these, but it's the workplace toxicity piece. And it when you step away from your workplace and there's just a building standing there, or you're at home and no one's around, there's nothing really toxic about it unless you have like black mold or something going on, right?
Right.
It's when people come into the building or to the workspace that the toxicity starts to build. And it's because of many things. It can be because of leadership issues. It can be because of personality conflicts. It can become one of these issues that we don't address a lot, which is those ACEs, which is that adverse childhood experience, that now you're being placed as an individual back into a workplace where you have a boss that's more like a parent. You become the child, and now we have our issues that were never resolved. They start to come out. So there's all these things happening in the workplace. There's a lot of people that are unhealthy. There's a lot of people that are unhappy. And there's just a lot of workplaces that are struggling and they don't need to be. Nobody wants to like give up their control. They think they're right and they double down on these things. So I've got this course that I teach about the toxicity in workplaces and how we can, build teams and build people that come together. And you can have your differences, but you know what? There's a place to leave them, and it's called at the door when you come in, because the truth is we have a common mission here. We have a job to do. And you can't have it your way all the way. And if you want that, you need to go work at was it Burger King, right? Your way right away. Because right now the truth is that we have a lot of problems going on personally that we bring into the workplace. Just like our first responders. Everybody has stuff going on, whether it's financial, whether it's relational, substance use problems, too much stress, not dealing with those, sick parents, whatever, special needs children. We all have those issues, and we're bringing them into the workplace. So we're having issues in the workplace like never before.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. I do some work with those individuals as well, and in those settings, those surroundings, and it is so true. And there's oftentimes that expectation of, hey, when you come to work, leave those things at home. Well, the
Yeah, and
reality is there's no way. There's no way that
no,
we can. It is going to impact you in the way that
absolutely.
in the way that you work.
But if we're more open and more understanding to what other people might be going through, we can start to bridge that gap. And, you know, um, if somebody has a home life that they're struggling in as well, sometimes the place to go is for refuge is work. And if your work life is struggling as well, we're going to have a serious problem. So it's like, I wish we could make a day, and maybe I can. I think you can actually like write in and you can make holidays and you have to pay a fee or whatever and you get like a holiday. But I would love to have a holiday where we talk about redemption and we talk about fixing broken relationships, apologizing when you might have been wrong, like moving on from the 20-year thing that you didn't like this person for 20 years and you can't even remember why you don't like them. You just don't. And no matter what they do or what they say, you can always find something wrong with it. So it's like, I wish we could get past those pieces of the pie, because the truth is, you're probably missing out on a lot of really good people who have a lot to offer, but they
Yeah.
feel like they're struggling and sometimes drowning in their workplaces because we aren't using them. This is another thing I don't like, is we're not using them for the talents that they brought with them that are God given. We
Yeah.
we have a job, yes, but man, think about how much more productive your organization could be if you found out a little bit more about the people that you worked with and that work for you and what they possess. I mean, I've gotten a lot of these young guys and gals, they have really great computer skills. They may not have always the best communication, and we've done that ourselves because we've given them phones and technology. But man, they are good on that technology and they know what they know. So it's like taking what they bring and using them to their fullest potential and let them shine for you.
Yeah. Within this work that it's called training within industry. It's comes from the 40s is when it originated, and there's one component of it which is job relations, and talks about foundations for good relationships, and essentially it's saying better relationships equal better results.
Yes.
If we right, and so there's four primary things that it says focusing on: set expectations, let people know how they're doing,
Yes.
give credit when due,
Yep.
let people know in advance of changes that are going to affect them. And then the fourth one, which made me think about that again, was make best use of people's abilities.
Yes.
But if you don't know your people,
That's right.
you can't do that. So
No,
it's
you can engage them and you can do different things to engage them. Right now we have this idea that we have to self-promote all the time because we're not no one else is promoting you or they're not recognizing, and that's where we're missing out.
yeah,
Is we have so many good people doing so much good in our community. I mean, especially like our first responders, our nurses. I mean, they just run the gamut. Like people in general are really doing good things. I mean, you can see it every day of the week on social media. We need to be finding those people and young people that are doing good and they're making good choices. Like we need to keep pushing those things along. And when you do that and you entertain that and you introduce yourself and you get them involved, you start to find out who they are at their core. And
Yeah.
when we boiled our research down, our fatal 10, we boiled it down. It came out, and Dr. Jory Crossan's our clinical guy. He does that. So he boiled that down and he came out with what's called relational purpose. And it's the idea that your purpose has relationships built around it, and with every relationship there is a purpose. Whether it's a spouse, provider of whatever for your family, a solid person, whatever that is, it's a very core piece of why you do what you do. And when you can get to people's core and you understand what their purpose is and what they're here for, and you engage them on a different level, what they bring to the game is different. Like I can tell some agencies, like, when it's just really struggling and there's nobody wants to do anything because they're not motivated to, you can bring a rising star in there and say, listen, you don't even have to do much, but if you do just a little bit more than the last guy, you're going to shine like a bright star. But what I really want you to do is come in there and be self-motivated, and I want you to see what's going on. I want you to become part of the piece of puzzle that fits in here, and I want you to make this place better than it was when you came in, and be motivated to keep that going. That's where I really want people to be. But they're not going to be there if you don't ask them what they're good at and let them do what they're good at. If you micromanage
Right.
everything they do, they're not going to share that piece with you. And if they
Yeah.
don't feel safe psychologically and they don't feel safe within the environment they're working, they're never going to come to their fullest potential.
Yeah. Closing out here, a leader listening today, whether in law enforcement, business, ministry, feeling stretched,
Yeah.
feeling thin, disconnected, what encouragement could you offer them?
Oh, well, even if you're not a Christian, it's just having faith in something bigger than yourself and realizing, I tell people all the time when they're struggling is, listen, when I look back at my younger self, I always want to say, like, don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff, because in reality it is.
Yeah.
It's building, relationships. It's doing better. It's like you said earlier, taking accountability for maybe things that you've done and that may have caused some of the issues that we're dealing with right now. It's reaching out to your people and telling them, hey, putting yourself out there a little bit, being a little bit vulnerable. Hey, I'm struggling with some stuff right now too. I could really use your help, right? I know that's a vulnerable place to be, but the truth is, our leaders are struggling a lot. And because they hold the positions they hold, they have to maintain that professionalism and they can't let their guard down. But we need to step up to the plate too and realize that they are struggling and reach out and see what we can do to help them, because that's a lot of weight to hold depending on the occupation they're in, to really keep the balls in the air and keep them juggling while they're struggling with their own problems. So just remember that everybody's struggling at this point, and reach out to them and see how they're doing, see what they need. On a quick note here. So I remember reading an article on LinkedIn. I don't know the author. I would share it if I did. But the idea was there was a loss. Somebody had lost a family member. And it's instead of going to them and saying, what can I do for you? Because they're going to tell you nothing, I'm fine, blah, blah, blah. You go buy them groceries. And it was like, buy them groceries anyway. Just buy some groceries and deliver them, make sure they're home and deliver them, because right now that's what they need. Just
Mhm.
meet them where they're at. Have pizzas delivered, have some food delivered, set up an event for them, let them know they're welcome to come. Like, just reach out and tell them what you have for them. Don't ask them what they need, because they're always going to tell you they don't need anything, because they
Right.
don't want to inconvenience you, and they don't want you, they just they don't want to bother you. Do it anyway, right? Because there's
Yeah.
somebody will get something out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And how many times, hey, is there anything I can do for you? Right. And people ask that question
Yeah.
with the anticipation that they're not going to say, yes, there is.
Yes.
Right. It's like people asking,
And they're afraid to say what they need. So you
right.
just do it anyway, because you know they need something. Do something that will be helpful in the moment.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for being here. If individuals are struggling, are facing challenges, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, so they can either Google the Blue Wall Institute. They can reach me at, for my email, it's Olivia at bw-institute.com. I have plenty of resources, all confidential. I wouldn't send them if I wouldn't use them myself, right? So I don't give out anything that I wouldn't use myself. I'd be happy to help you in any way I possibly can.
All right. Well, Olivia, Dr. Johnson, thank you for being a guest here on Firm Foundations, and thank you for the work you're doing and for sharing your perspective with us.
Thanks for having me, Steve. I really appreciate it.